Is there any way for money to buy you happiness?
The eternal question. So there's 5 things you can do with money. Number 1, you can buy stuff. Number 2, you can buy experiences. Number 3, you can buy time. Number 4, you can give it away. And number 5, you can save it. Those are the exhaustive possibilities of what you can do with money. 2 through 5 bring happiness. 1 doesn't. 1 is what you biologically have an imperative to do, is to go accumulate stuff, more of everything that shows that you're a successful person. However, if you buy experiences and experience these things with people that you love, you get happier. If you buy time and don't fritter it away, that you use it for your own edification or for the relationships in your life, you get happier. If you give your money to things that you're really passionate about, you get happier. And if you save your money, you get way happier.
How's everybody doing? Good. Good to be with you tonight. A few weeks ago, I told a little story or mentioned that sometimes I'm in social settings and I like to hide the idea that I'm a pastor, because one of the things that does happen, I have continuous experiences about this, is once I reveal to people that I'm a pastor, they start treating me in ways that are weird or odd. Their personality changes. It's just kind of an ick thing for me. And so I feel a little bad about it sometimes. I do try to hide it so that people will treat me like a normal person, and so they will be themselves. I have lots of stories about this. If you want to hear them, they're all hilarious to me. I'll tell you about them all in the comments. Let me tell you one real quick. Years ago, I went to play golf with a friend of mine. He was taking me to a very nice golf course across the border up in Michigan. And there was just 2 of us, so we knew we were going to be paired with 2 other people, and tee time at 10:30 in the morning, I think. So we get there, we're paired with the 2 other people, and I had told him, I'm like, hey, listen, if they ask me directly, I'll tell them, but let's not out the pastor thing, right? So, works well enough. The conversation starts on the tee box. They ask my buddy what he does. He carries it on, and they never ask me. And through the first 9 holes, these guys, they were being themselves. Can I just say it that way? That effing shot, they tell a joke that's an inappropriate joke and all of that. And so we had teed off at 10:30. It was moving kind of slow. So at the turn, we decided to sit and have lunch together. And at the turn, one of them turns to me and says, "Oh, Greg, what do you do?" And I said, "Actually, I'm a pastor." And you could see it on their face, just in heartbeat. Like it was absolutely wild to me. And then for the second 9, here's what happened. One of them didn't say a word. Not a word for the whole second 9. And the other one was trying to make up for lost time, which was so awkward, right? Like he's like, "Hey, brother Greg, do you want to tee off first? Hey, I hit a nice long putt." He's like, "Oh, you're blessed." I'm like, "I'm not blessed. I lined up the putt perfectly. Give me some credit. That wasn't Jesus who did that. That was me." And then I hit one pass, and he's like, "Oh, like Samson." I'm like, "You even know about the Bible?" It's so weird to me. And I've always thought I should pull this. Like, we should go golfing, like 2 of us with a pair, not tell anyone, and then we should bet. Would I really do this? I don't know whether I'd really do this or not. But like, if it's a close match, like right before the 18th hole is when I say, "By the way, I'm a pastor," it would throw them off entirely. Now here's the thing. It is true that I want people to perceive me like I'm just a normal person. I'm an everyday guy. Treat me as you would act like yourself around me. But that's actually only true for me until it's not. Maybe you have things in your personality like this where you're like, "Yeah, I kind of feel like I want people to treat me this way," and then they treat me this way. I'm like, "Actually, I want you to treat me a different way." And so for me, one of the things that I know about my life is that I don't love small talk. Like, I can talk about the Bears for a while. I can talk about the weather. I can talk about politics if you want to talk about politics. But after a while, I want to get into a meaningful conversation, because I actually have, I told this to the group that went through Rooted last spring. I kind of outed myself for the first time. I have a low-level addiction to changed lives. And I say that to you, I don't know how that hits you, if it's odd or if it's cool or if it's like pride thing for me. I just say it to you because I've learned that it's true, and it literally is an addiction for me. Now, addictions are not healthy. If you could choose your addictions, this is a good one compared to many other addictions that you can have. But there's something inside of me that just needs to see lives being changed. And so I don't do small talk very well. I want to get to a point and be like, hey, I think God could do something special in your life. I think God could do something special through you. And so, on one hand, I want people to treat me like I'm normal. On the other hand, I don't want to be. I want to be a little weird and see what God can do in people's lives. Now, why do I say all that to you? It's because the message that I'm going to share today is one that I usually share about once a year, but something in this vein. And it is a message where all the time I see God do something special in people with it, and I see God do something special through people with it. And so this is a very exciting message for me, and it's one that I hope that you will take to heart, just opening yourself to what God would do. So we've been in this series about money, and the first 2 weeks were about handling our money, and your response has been amazing. We've seen God do something special in people. Every sign up we had in person for Budget Boot Camp, for Legacy Seminar, for all that, they are all completely booked. There's still room in the online version of the Legacy Seminar. But it's like, okay, people are hungry. They're open to what God's doing. They want to see some transformation in their financial lives. That's awesome. And today I'm going to talk about generosity. And it is particularly about the generosity that we express with the money God has given us, where it's like, oh my goodness. I think people anticipate God might do something through them, like it might make a difference somewhere. But I'm also telling you, I've seen God do his greatest work of helping people trust him in new ways and then see him provide in these ways as good as anything else. Now, you saw a card on your seat. You either sat on it or picked it up or sat off to the side. This is for the end of the service, and I'm not going to ask you to turn this card in today. I don't want anyone to be nervous about the card. This card is for you to take today. But I particularly, for just a minute, want to talk to the high school and middle school students in the room, because you might anticipate on a message about generosity that this isn't for you. But I'm telling you, Mitch was giving me a hard time in his message last week about opening an IRA when you're still a teenager, that sort of thing. Well, here's the thing. I had great parents. They taught me really well about handling money, and they taught me really well about generosity. And my generosity journey started when I was 13 years old, I think, and I had my first job and started making any money at all. And there were decisions that I made as a teenager that made all my later decisions feel normal. Not like I'm climbing this enormous mountain to get to the top. And so out of all the crowds that I picture when I'm preparing this message, those of you in middle school and high school and maybe college, I think in some ways you are the most important group that I want to talk to today. Not because you'll give a lot of money, but because of what God will do through you and how it will flourish over a lifetime. So I hope that you'll take this to heart. So through this whole series, we've called it The Plus Side. It's a positive series about money. We say these same three things. I want something for you, not something from you. Never a quid pro quo, meaning, hey, if you choose out at the end of this message not to be a giver at Suncrest, we'll still serve you. Like, this is not a transactional relationship. And always becoming like Christ. And, Jesus talks a lot about our financial lives. We'll look at some of that today. And I just want you to keep growing in your faith, your trust, your posture, to be more and more like Christ. This idea comes from a particular passage in the scriptures that has shaped how I think about money and teach about this subject of generosity. It's something Paul was writing in Philippians. This is what he says. He says, not that I desire your gifts. What I desire is that more be credited to your account. Paul was asking people to give financially to the ministry that he was doing. And a group of people did give to that ministry. And now this is kind of his response to it. And he says, listen, it's not that I need something from you. It's not that I desire your gifts. He says, I know what happens in you, what happens through you. I know how it would be credited to your account, how life will be different for you. I want something for you. And then he gives these three things. I'm going to work from the bottom up. He says, and my God will meet all of your needs. And you'll see this show up in the scriptures today, that when you're generous, God pours things back to you. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is not me promising that you'll be flush with cash if you give. That's not what the scriptures are saying. But absolutely, without question, when you give generously, God takes care of you. That's what he's saying. Like, that's a good thing. That's good for life. It's pleasing to God. Like this is, I don't know if you think in these terms pretty frequently. I hope that you do, where you think, I want to live a life that honors God. Like that's the posture of my life. After all that God has done for me, after the love that he's poured out to me, after Christ going to the cross for me, the least I can do is live a life that honors God, that would be pleasing to him. And Paul's saying, hey man, when you give, you get to experience that you're living a life that's pleasing to God. It's like, that's awesome. And then he also says, and I am amply supplied. I asked you for an offering. I asked you for generosity. You responded. It provided what was needed to carry on the mission going forward. And he said, I am amply supplied. He said, I hope you feel great about that you used your money to make a real difference in God's kingdom. It is interesting here, and I want to be candid about this for a second, that when he says there, I'm amply supplied, you probably have never heard a financial update from the platform here at Suncrest. But the truth is right now, we are not amply supplied at Suncrest. And I don't harp on this. To me, it's all about like, well, let God do his work through people and he will provide. But can I show you a couple of stats that I shared with our leaders just last month? We've had attendance increase. I talked about that a couple weeks ago. This is just average through year to date then. 2023, 1,147, 2025, 1,617, right? Same thing is true with kids. Absolutely, 218 kids was our average, 316 kids. Now, that's tremendous. That's like 40% increase in attendance and in kids in the last 2 years. Let me show you the stat for our offerings. Less than $300 a week increase. Hundreds of new people. 100 plus new kids. And yet the offerings have been really, really flat over the last couple of years. And I don't want this to be transactional, but I also don't want to keep that a secret. I want you to know that actually, this is an enormous challenge for us right now. For the first time, I think ever at Suncrest, our elders in January, after they just approved a budget for this year in December, they came back in January and approved for us to spend out of our rainy day fund some money to add a staff member, a part of a staff member in Suncrest Kids. Because the sense is like, we can't do it. We can't serve 100 more kids and not take steps forward in that way. And so we just trust that God will supply it over time. But it's not the way that we function. We've always been, hey, whatever comes in, that's what we have to spend. And so even in the midst of this, I don't want to keep that a secret from you. I want to say oh yeah, that's what's going on here. And I think God can do something special in you, and he can do something special through you. Now, let me set a little context for money, and I'm going to make a statement here. I always try to guess, how will people react to this statement? I think most of you will read the thing that's going to appear on the screen in just a second, and you will think, duh, of course that's true, Greg. You don't need to tell us that. But I'm trusting that there's a few people in the room who need to be jostled on this. So if you're open to that, let's try it. Foolish people use life to grow money. I'm calling you a fool. The scriptures are calling you a fool. I almost said stupid people. I thought that's a little harsh. That's a little rude. But everybody knows this, right? To aim your life at having money, having lots of money, it is the entire wrong way to think about money. And this isn't money is good or money is bad. I think in general money is good. The idea, though, is it's not the goal. It's not a smart goal for you to have. Now, I know people get tied up in this. The scriptures speak to this. If you just think about this. So 1 Timothy 6, this is the passage that Mitch was in last week as he was teaching. 1 Timothy 6 says, the love of money is the root of all evil. And then this is what it says. Many people eager to gain wealth have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. And what it's saying is, okay, money has a role in our life, a very important and a big role. But the role can't be that it's the goal. When it becomes the goal, when I love money and I want to have lots of money, when it becomes the goal, it will cause you to wander from the faith. Not that you turned your back on Jesus. That's not what it is. It's like, it's distracting. It'll get your attention over some other things. I have stories of people who were at Suncrest, who were really solid in their faith, and there was a money-making opportunity. Usually it's a new job, usually it's something from them, and they went for it. In a couple of instances, it caused them to relocate from here. And when they relocated, they were so focused on that job, and then they never really found a church. And then they got divorced. And I'm like, oh my God, you just have to be so careful because chasing that as the end, it's like, it'll get you. Matthew chapter 25 is where Jesus tells the story of the parable of the talents. And one of the repetitive phrases in there is that Jesus condemns people who wanted just to protect their money. And he says, oh, actually, what you should have done is go put your money to work. Money is a tool. It is a means to an end. It can accomplish certain things in your life, and many things far beyond generosity. But that's the right way to think about money. Not that it's the goal, but that, man, money's good, so I can fill in the blank. In Luke chapter 16, it's probably the wildest story Jesus told as a parable. It's called, there's a guy who's a manager, and this guy is named as both dishonest and shrewd. Shrewd meaning, he understands how to leverage money. And Jesus takes this guy who is dishonest and shrewd, and he uses him, shockingly to some, as a positive example for how we ought to live. He does clarify, it's not the dishonesty part, but the shrewd part. Shrewd is the opposite of foolish. Shrewd understands you can trade money for different things in life, and life gets better. Money, at its best, is a means to an end. It's what brings meaning to our ends, and it's a tool to accomplish and to receive certain things in life. I can give you a long list. Some of these come out of the story in Luke 16. Shrewd people use money to grow their time. Did you know you can actually buy time with money? One of the things I do, I have a friend out of town. Don't tell him this, and I hope he's not watching online, but he lives about an hour away. We like to have lunch together from time to time, and I always say to him, hey, if you'll drive to me, I'll buy. If you'll drive to me, I'll buy. And it cost me about $20 for his lunch, and it saves me about 3 hours. This is just saying, I have some money. I'm a little low on time. I'm going to trade some money for time. I'm going to get personal here, okay? If you are a person who's like, I don't have any time. I'm so busy. And you also have money in the bank that could be used to buy you some time. That's what foolishness is. Anyone who would complain about being busy or out of time, but they have money where they could pay someone to do things. It's just foolishness not to do that. Time is more valuable than money, and a shrewd person would trade their money for some time. Let me go through a little quicker. You can buy some freedom. You handle your money well, you have some freedom. You have room to make different decisions in your life. You can use money for freedom. You can use money to grow friendships. And if you've heard me teach this before, trust me, it's not like, hey, will you be my friend? I'll give you $50. That is not what this is, right? This is, what did Dr. Arthur Brooks say? He's like, if you buy experiences and you share them with people you love, it will make you happier. You trade money for that. I mentioned in my Easter message that I went to the national championship game when Purdue played last year with two of my friends from here. Now, we all are a little frugal. We pulled it off for less than $500 a person, but it did cost $500, each of us. And we made the greatest memories. I'm like, oh my goodness, that was the best use of $500. Because you can trade and you have lifelong friendship memories you shared together. Oh my goodness. Shrewd people will use their money to grow influence with other people. Shrewd money will use their money to grow health. Did you know? Think about this. Many people trade their health for money. They work a job that has stress at 9 out of 10. It demands something from them physically. It's crazy. And they live their whole life like that. They are trading their health so they can have money. But smart people say, what if I could trade my money and have better health? And you literally, it takes some self-discipline still, but it's just the idea. Use what God has given you. And of course, shrewd people use money to grow God's kingdom. Now, this is an important dividing point in the room right now. Some of you in the room are not followers of Jesus. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, I don't expect you to value God's kingdom at all. This is the point in the message where you get to sit and listen for the rest of the message for me to talk to the followers of Jesus. Those of you who are followers of Jesus, and you have to decide, have I trusted Christ? Have I been baptized? Have I taken that step? Am I on the way to heaven? Like all those things. For those of you who are followers of Jesus, there's nothing more important in life than God's kingdom, right? For you, you're a follower of Jesus. God's kingdom is the most important thing in your life, right? And you can actually trade some of your money for lives to be changed in God's kingdom. I think about this with my own generosity. Maybe I'm weird this way, but I'm like, man, the last 3 years, 400 people have been baptized at Suncrest. I'm like, that was a pretty good use of all my generosity here. That was a good trade. Man, over the last 3 years, 15 new churches have gotten started because Suncrest has been in their corner to help them get started. Look what's happening. Look at all the baptisms happening. Look what's happening. It's amazing to me. That was a good trade of my money for God's kingdom. And it's not all about big numbers and scale. In some ways, it's not 400 baptisms over the last 3 years. It's my 2 neighbors who were baptized. It's just the 2 people I really care about. Thanks to a place like this and every time Jenny and I give, I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's in God's kingdom. So, I'm asking those of you who are followers of Jesus to let God do a work in you, to increase your trust in Him, to invest and use your money, trade it for something valuable in God's kingdom. Now, if you've been around Suncrest, you hear us talk about the 4 R's. I'm not going to spend time on this yet. I will in just a few minutes. But what I want you to see about the 4 R's for us is we understand how journey works in people's lives. One of our whole values as a church is that we'll walk with people on their journey. People change. This might be helpful to you. People only change in 2 ways. They change by evolution, meaning small incremental change to get you from here to there. Takes time. And people change by revolution. Revolution goes much faster, and many times people die. But you might be on a journey, an evolutionary journey yourself, to say, okay, I just started here, I'm brand new, what's my first step? And we don't expect you to take the last steps. It's a journey. One of our values, we say, God loves you just the way you are. You don't have to change for God to love you. And God loves you too much to leave you just the way you are. He wants to do a great work in your life. And so you're welcome as you are, and there's an expectation to go on the journey. I've done messages. Some of you have heard me say that. This is just the progression of Jesus. Early on in his ministry, he says to people, hey, come and see. Come check me out. You don't have to sign anything. You don't have to sing anything. You don't have to commit to anything. Just listen. And then he says, come and follow. Come and follow me. That is more of a commitment. You take a step in your journey. And eventually he says, come and die. Lay your life on the altar. Give everything that you have for me and my cause. And I understand that journey takes time. And sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes it's evolution. Sometimes it's revolution. And we do the same thing here. It should shock nobody that we get 1,000 people to serve on the week after Easter. And then if you are willing to serve once, we're hoping your next step after that is to join a serving team. This journey value is for us all over the place, including in our giving, where people always move from being a rookie giver to make their first gift to a recurring giver to make it a habit in their life, to be a relational giver, to give a full 10th of their income to God, and then to be a radical giver beyond that. Jesus wants us to have a vision of how our finances, our money, fit into the whole of our life. He always treats this holistically. So let me read you 3 passages. He says, do not condemn, and you won't be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you in your giving, and your forgiving, and in your condemnation. Jesus is teaching us something about life, and I hope that you completely embrace this. He's basically saying, whatever comes out of you will come back to you. And actually in the same measure that you use. If you let just a little bit out, it'll just come back in a little bit. If you let a lot out, if you bring your dump truck, a lot comes back. That's true with forgiveness. It's also true if you're judgy toward people. If you're condemning to people, you'll start to notice that you get condemned. And actually, I trust again that you all see this, but God goes first in this. God forgave us. He asks us to forgive others. And then out of that forgiveness, that's how we'll be forgiven. God gave a lot He gave us everything that we have. And then he asks us to give some back. And then he says, and then I'll give it to you. This is the way of the kingdom. It's holistic. It's not just money, but it absolutely includes money. In Luke chapter 11, Jesus says this, you give a 10th, that's the tithe, right? Some people use the word tithe to mean whatever they give, but the word tithe means 1/10 of your income. He's telling a group, you give a 10th, but you neglect justice and the love of God. In this case, they're doing the financial giving thing, but they're missing the bigger picture. And he says, you should have practiced the latter. You should have practiced justice, working for justice in our world. You should have practiced the love of God in our world without leaving the former undone. It's not either or. It's holistic. And he takes that idea of a 10th that was rooted in the old covenant, and he says, yeah, keep doing that. That's a big deal. In Luke chapter 12, he says this, but seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I know just a little bit ago, I said something that may have hit you wrong. I said, if you're a follower of Jesus, like God's kingdom is the most important thing in life to you, right? And I'm not naive. I know that it's not. In real life, the most important thing in lots of people's lives, certainly not in their finances. And I think there's a journey to get there. But it is absolutely the right goal to set our sights on, to seek his kingdom. And then Jesus attaches to that, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So with that in mind, let me talk to you about these 4 R's. I want to walk through them step by step so you understand as clearly as you can what they are. And then I want to ask each one of you today to reflect and decide what your step is, to mark that box on your card, and to take that card home with you and put it somewhere as your own commitment to yourself. Let me describe the 4 R's. There are rookie givers. Rookie givers, this is to some degree self-explanatory. It's just your first gift. And, I always try to picture you when I'm preparing these messages, and I think, well, surely everybody here is already a rookie giver, right? Like, that's kind of my first instinct. I'm like, who here wouldn't have at least done a first gift? And then I look at the stats that I showed you just a little bit ago, and I'm like, I don't think that's a safe assumption. And so if you've been a person who hasn't been a giver, you're a follower of Jesus. You're a follower of Jesus, and you haven't been a giver, like, making your first gift is the place to start. And understanding it's not a one-time gift. It's the beginning. It's the first of many. You choose the size. It's about the act of being generous to God. Second, there are recurring givers. So recurring givers, now this becomes a habit in our lives. It's part of the practice of who we are. It's the holistic nature that Jesus is teaching to us. He says, don't have your financial life over here and all the rest of your life over here. Whatever's important to you, make it a regular thing in your life. And the word recurring is actually, of course, the word that, is how automated giving works. You set up a recurring gift every week, a recurring gift every month, a recurring gift on whatever schedule you want to set it on. But it's like, okay, this is part of who I am. Now, this is important. Recurring givers are giving less than a tenth. And I understand. For many people in life, a tenth feels like a mountain to climb. And I just want to encourage you to, over time, climb that mountain. The change in your life is quite likely evolutionary. And it might take you 3 or 4 or 5 years to get to that place in your life. But you are laying down something important to say, at the center of my finances, I do have a habit. It's a regular thing to say I'm making a difference in God's kingdom. And I'm going to make that happen all the time. The question a recurring giver would ask when they're thinking about, well, how large would that gift be? Is that they usually ask, what can I afford? Or what would be a little bit of a stretch for me? Then there's relational givers. And relational givers is really ultimately what I think Christ calls us to. And some of you are more revolutionary than evolutionary, and you're like, well, if that's what Christ calls me to, I'm starting tomorrow. And I respect that. I do. But the relational idea of giving this is so significant. A relational giver gives a full tenth of their income. And I'll talk about what it means for our trust for God in a second. But one of the main ideas behind relational is, you see how this part of your financial life relates to other parts of your financial life. So if you give $100 a month to God's kingdom, you can look at the rest of your budget and say, so what gets $100 a month from me? This is what I do to God's kingdom. This is what I do for something else. You can see what comes in less than what you're doing. You can see what comes in more than what you're doing. But for a relational giver, if you're giving a tenth of your income, it means the main thing you're doing, the primary thing you're doing is giving to God's kingdom. I think that's why God has this idea of a tenth in mind. And it's such a powerful concept. Because nobody gives a tenth of their income without really wrestling a little bit with trusting God. If the recurring giver asks, so how much can I afford? I want to make it regular. How much can I afford? What would stretch me a little bit? The relational giver asks an entirely different question. The question is, what does fully trusting God look like? What does fully trusting God look like? And this is the answer to that question. They say, that's what I'm going to do. And then there are radical givers. Radical givers are people who give beyond a tenth to change lives. And I always have to explain this because radical givers is never about an amount. Never about an amount. If you make $200,000 a year and you give $15,000 a year, you are not a radical giver. It's never about an amount. If you make $50,000 a year and you give $6,000 a year, something beyond a tenth, or if you give $50,000 and then you're looking for other places you could make a difference in God's kingdom, that's what a radical giver is. This is Jesus telling the story of the widow's mite, who basically looked at her money and said, what better thing could I do with my money than to trust it to God and give it to the work of his kingdom? I think I'll give it. I'm not worried about a tenth. And radical givers, we have radical givers. Some of you are radical givers. And I just thank God for you. Like, you're a different breed, right? This is not asking, what do I have to do to obey? This is saying, I don't know, where else can I change somebody's life? Where else can I make a difference? That's what I want my money to do. And so we actually keep a list here. And this might sound odd at first, but you'll all appreciate how we do this. We keep a list here of people who have outed themselves as radical givers because from time to time each year, I have opportunities that come up that could be given to that are outside of our regular budget, that are outside of regular things. And people who are radical givers are the kind of people who say, I want you to tell me about those. I'd like to maybe give to that. I may not be able to. I may not be able to right now, but I'd like to know so I could consider giving because that's what I want to do. So in just a minute, I'm going to ask anyone who says, yeah, I'm a radical giver. I give beyond a tenth. I want to know what the opportunities are. Man, I will invite you to that. We'll put you on the list. You'll get your first email about it on Monday. And you'll get another email about it at the end of June, and then that's just going to be the only two for the rest of the year. We already asked the Radical Givers earlier once this year. They did amazing things to help all our kids go to summer camp. It's crazy. It's crazy good. But that is what a radical giver is. So, whatever God's speaking to you right now, whatever it would look like to take a step of trust toward him with your generosity, I know, I'm very confident God will use this weekend in some people, not everyone, in some people to do something special in you and to do something special through you. And I'm really just asking you to make sure you're taking your next steps on the journey. So before we go, I want to ask anyone who's a giver just to text the word giver to 94,000. If you've been around, you know we use this text code, 94,000. If you text the word giver, let me tell you exactly what's going to happen. If you're a rookie, recurring, or relational giver, it's just going to text you back with a link to how you can set up recurring gifts, regular gifts. Automating it helps a ton. And so we'll just send you back the link for that. Also, if you're saying today, I'm a radical giver, Greg, I want to be on that list. When you text giver, you'll have the chance to text back your name and your email address, and then we'll put you on the list. You'll join, I think there's about 50 people at Suncrest right now who get this email a few times a year who say, hey, I already give my 10th. When it's beyond the 10th, ask me. I want to help. And we would love to help you activate that. And then for yourself, there's the card that I want to ask you to take home. Now, I'm not naive. Some of you are here by yourself. You make all your financial decisions yourself. You could probably make your decisions while you're sitting here. Many of you are married, and you should not make this decision yourself. You should make it in unity with the person you're married to. And you may need to carry on this conversation beyond here. So I just hope that you will text giver to 94,000, make a next step in your generosity, and that you'll see this as part of your spiritual journey, your evolution, where God would do something special in you and something special through you. Would you stand with me? I'm going to pray for us right now. Well, I really hope that was helpful for integrating faith with life. Listen, if you're in Northwest Indiana, I'd love to have you join us in person. Head over to suncrest.org and plan your visit.